Hello everyone, a warm welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar, the PR Power Hour, brought to you by Cultural Communications. I'm Nina Plowman, and with my partner Charlotte Heath-Bullock, we established our own PR agency in 2010, having operated in the luxury business for almost 2 decades. Today, Cultural Comms is PR Week's top 10 luxury PR agency specialising in culture. Our experience spans the luxury, art and antiques world, which includes fairs, with our founding client being Masterpiece, collectibles and luxury lifestyle brands. Today, we will be bringing to you some tips on communicating in challenging trading times as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. We are calling these the 4 Cs. But before we start today's session, just a few points to remember. There will be time for questions afterwards, so we'd like to encourage you to submit questions, and to do this, there is a Q&A function which can be found at the bottom of the screen on the bar below the presentation. The chat function can also be used for general conversation. But do also join our conversation online after the webinar and during the webinar. We're using the handles shown on your screen, as you'll see on your screen, and the hashtag Cultural Comms PR Power Hour. We find ourselves in a situation that no one could have foreseen. Now that the initial panic is over and we settle into a new normal, now is time to take stock, embrace change, innovate, and move with dexterity. So, over to Charlotte. Is this a time to hibernate or communicate?
Right, sorry, that was me being bad on the slides, and I forgot to show the first slide with a little bit of our experience and the hashtags that you should be seeing now. So I'd like to say hi to everyone and thanks for tuning in this morning. My goodness, who'd have thought we'd have that just over a month ago we would find ourselves in this really surreal situation. So from where we were standing that first week at the end of March, that saw most businesses, ourselves included, really facing a state of shock at the reality as to what was taking place. And then as we entered the second week, we saw brands going into panic mode as they attempted what damage limitation they could. And it wasn't until really the government announced the support programs that pragmatism set in, and we began to see clients and organizations really reevaluate their marketing and communications outreach and look at how best to react. And that's where the good news is. So whilst we grapple with the best ways to keep our businesses going, given that the fairs, the exhibitions are all cancelled, and those of you with retail premises are have those out of bounds, your prospective clients are spending up to 60% more time looking for content on their devices that inspires them and educates them. So if ever we have a time when there is a captive audience, and not just in the UK, but globally as well, it is now. So our first tip is that whatever you do, don't stop communicating. So this is the first of our 4 C's that we're going to talk through today. Now, all of you, we know, have so much knowledge and expertise and rich stories to tell about your discoveries. Hopefully, many of you will have seen the webinars earlier in the month of by Ben Mason of the Tom Sawyer effect that LAPADA put on about making your social media work harder for you. This is a great opportunity to share your knowledge right now through tips to care or revive your antiques in the home, through to your favorite personal pieces. And if anyone hasn't seen Philip Mould's Art in Isolation series that he's running on Instagram, I definitely recommend that you take a look at that. He's doing it really well. And also you may have spotted that the repair shop has jumped from BBC Two to primetime BBC One viewing. Partly, of course, it's gentle in nature, it's appropriate for the time, but also because of this growing interest in caring for treasures in the home that we're seeing, as consumers are abandoning the acquisition in favour of pre-loved. So this is a trend that we see growing, and you can take advantage of it by communicating your decades of knowledge. Now, a lot of small businesses say to me that they don't always have the resources financially or time-wise to market and communicate effectively. But actually, with the explosion of social media, this isn't the case. And what small businesses do have to their advantage is the ability to adapt quickly. And I always use the analogy of small businesses and entrepreneurs as the nimble yachts to the ocean liners of bigger businesses. You are able to pivot on a sixpence. So I would say make the most of this opportunity, and whatever you do keep communicating.
So some of us will be experiencing right now more time with family, dealing with a huge adjustment to work from home, finding new headspace to think about the bigger picture. Others, on the other hand, will be on survival mode because business avenues have closed, client inquiries have reduced significantly. How can we be proactive, and how can we continue to be entrepreneurial at a time like this?
So this brings me on to the second C that I want to talk about, which is creativity. So we have a rather lovely backdrop here of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden by Wenzel Peter, which is in the Vatican Museum. But I don't want you to think that God's creation is a metaphor for your creative ability, so don't panic. This is a perfect opportunity to think creatively about ways to engage with new audiences. And we've seen this very effectively from the beauty industry, with many beauticians, hairdressers, and so forth selling vouchers that can be redeemed at a later date. You may think that's not relevant to your business, but actually, are there monetary values that could be redeemed against stock later down the line, or for valuations later down the line? Can you use your newfound or existing social media skills to break down your experience, creating little bite-sized educational experiences that can share your knowledge of certain fashions or periods, maybe artists, craftsmen, etc., through whether written articles or short self-made films? Taking your clients and collectors on a tour through history, using your specialist knowledge and your areas of passion. You could do this as an online event, as we're doing now via the Zoom platform. But lastly, I think with everyone feeling the business challenge, it's a great time to collaborate and approach partners for collaborations that take your expertise and knowledge to new audiences. So a few examples I just want to talk through. Can you approach interior designers who are near you and create a joint approach to perhaps refreshing a room and talking about how to incorporate a focal piece of furniture that's been acquired or inherited? Or perhaps approaching a local estate agent with art, furniture, recommendations of the period to go into properties that they have listed. We may have some jewelry dealers listening in. You have an opportunity to approach stylists potentially to collaborate on style tips for events happening in the future. You may have seen that the Chelsea Flower Show is being developed as a virtual event. Anyone got any floral jewelry or floral pieces? And we may have Royal Ascot running behind closed doors. So if ever we had an excuse to dress up and stay in, there you have it. And finally, I would say don't forget your fellow dealers and see how you can collaborate together. Can you work together to discuss? I'm going to give you a random example, the Edwardian dinner party. So could a furniture dealer collaborate with a silver dealer with ceramics, and talk about the rituals behind grand entertaining? Because that sort of idea lends itself to really great visuals and also really evocative storytelling as well.
And despite not being able to do much business at the moment, we've seen the British luxury retail business do exactly that, as Charlotte's just talked about, create and collaborate. They're known to be the most creative and entrepreneurial of sectors, but they're also responding to the situation and reaching out to their communities, such as the NHS. So how can other businesses learn from this?
So C number 3 is caring for others. Again, this is the great opportunity that we've needed, I think, to reflect on what really matters in life. We're going to see huge changes in the way we live after this, with much more focus on purposeful consumption, purposeful travel and experiences. And that's good news for LAPADA members and antiques dealers in general, who have long espoused the quality and also the environmental benefits of buying period pieces. So this is the time to look out for others around you and to look at how you can give back and also support your suppliers. So just to touch on giving back, I briefly mentioned virtual valuations earlier. Potentially, could you offer those with a donation to charity? You know, there's a huge focus obviously on the NHS at the moment, but the other societal problems and issues haven't gone away. And I'm sure you'll have read in the news about charities that have lost their income streams and are desperate for support at the moment. And they would be no doubt delighted by any initiatives that might support them, and then will equally gladly support back in turn. It's also a great time to highlight the rare skills of the craftsmen and women who lovingly restore and bring our antiques and treasured pieces back to life. Again, I referenced the Restore Shop earlier, and I think it's a great way to champion their skills and demonstrate their value, whilst also gently explaining whilst perhaps good restoration doesn't necessarily come cheap. You know, they are craftspeople, and they have a value. And the last thing I wanted to mention was to remember to look after your people and your network, as well as your clients. We have been running a number of virtual drinks, which have been really well received by groups of our contacts. And we're very aware that many people in the antiques trade work in isolation under normal conditions, and that a lot of dealers are sort of 1, 2, 3 man bands. This is a great time to nurture those relationships with curators, with restorers, and people who might relish the opportunity to share their experiences, how they're getting through this, and the challenges they're facing as well. So do nurture those relationships for the future.
And as you referred to earlier, Charlotte, the new working environment is allowing us to review and reflect. It's inviting us to look at the activations that worked really well, the things that didn't work so well. How can they be improved? How can we use this time productively? So what questions should we be asking ourselves?
So C number 4, the final C, is consolidate. With retail premises closed, antiques fairs off the calendar, at least for the time being, and of course new stock is considerably more harder to acquire at the moment. This is the time to take stock, critically assess and reflect on your business. So the things that I would be suggesting to you at the moment is to be looking at your website. You know, is it as slick as it could be? Does it need a refresh? Does the copy need rewriting? Do the images need to be refreshed? Is the messaging on point? How are you going to be perceived differently by your clients post-COVID? And what will your clients and consumers want? How are they going to behave? So I think making sure that the tools for your marketing and communications tools are up to date and relevant is really important. Equally, databases, well, we all hate going through databases, I think, but making sure that they are completely up to date. It's a great time to do that. Is all your stock photographed well and captioned perfectly? I believe that LAPADA is looking at doing a webinar or an event with a photographer to give some tips on how to take really great stock shots, which I think would be fantastic. But making sure that your imagery is really, really great is something you could be doing now. And then looking at ways that you can improve your knowledge and skills. I mean, the Tom Sawyer Effect webinars, I think, were great, and there was lots of helpful tips in there. And I know LAPADA's been working so hard on making sure that there are all sorts of resources available to you. But there are also lots of other online courses and resources to help you brush up your skills at very low cost. So I don't know whether people have come across a website called Udemy. It's Udemy. We can send a link afterwards if it's of interest. But Udemy offers over 100,000 online courses. Now, some are quite expensive, but others are very, very inexpensive. And so if you want to upskill on your product photography, you could probably do that for about sort of £10-20 investment, and then you get access to all of these experts. And you know, who knows, you might discover a newfound passion for Tai Chi or something totally unrelated. And I will admit that until today, I'd never presented a webinar on Zoom, so this has formed part of my upskilling. Well, you'll be the judge as to whether it's been worthwhile. And if the consensus is no, I will instead console myself with improving my wine tasting skills come this evening. So there you have it, really, our 4 C's to keep you communicating creatively with care, and also considering consolidation through the lockdown period and beyond. So I hope that we've provided just a sort of some food for thought and maybe a little bit of inspiration as to how you can keep your business thriving. We know it's a really challenging time for you, as it has been for us as well, and for many businesses out there. But it's not a time just to stop and to hibernate. It's a time when actually we can be proactive about things, and we would urge you to do that. So we thought we'd take a little poll whilst we're all together. So I'm just going to launch my poll, which hopefully everybody can see now. So I would love to hear how you might plan to communicate differently following today's webinar. So I think you should be able to click on those. Oh, I'm seeing some votes coming in. That's great. So if you're planning to share your expertise or collaborate with partners, support your professional network, consider how to improve your business for the future, maybe all of the above and maybe none of the above. I'm reassured that that as I'm seeing the votes come in, nobody's clicked on none of the above thus far, which is great.
Yes.
So we've still got a few coming in, so we'll give you a few more seconds to vote on that. Okay, I think we will end that. And I should be able to share the results with you now. So great to see that 60% of you are thinking of doing all of the things we've talked about, and I'm really, really pleased that that shows that hopefully we've given you some food for thought, and hopefully some ideas as well as to what you can be doing during this time to make sure that your businesses are still thriving and up in the best possible place to come out of this the other side.
Good, and we have some questions as well, which we'd love to answer for you. So do keep those questions coming in as we're obviously asking and answering. Do you have any advice for people who have done little or no digital communication in the past as the best way to get started? So my thinking around that would be that the best thing to start doing is observing. So start signing up to your Instagram account, your all your different social media platforms that you think are relevant to you, from Facebook, Instagram to Twitter. Start observing, start getting used to the environment. It's like kind of attending events and getting used to the environment. So you get to see how the audience works, and then start testing your audience as well. Start commenting, start interacting with other people that are on the platform. Start asking questions and see what comes back. And if you're really unsure, Charlotte mentioned earlier that there's some really good courses that can help you get started. So from Udemy, another one is Skillshare. The Skillshare platform's excellent. So I think the main piece of advice there is to just start dabbling and start experimenting with the platform.
I think if you haven't seen the Tom Sawyer Effect webinars that LAPADA has on their various channels, do log into the Knowledge Bank and take a look at those, because Ben Mason and his team have great experience working with all sorts of different types of companies, and I know the ones that I've seen have been really super, and just sharing some sort of basic skills as to how you can do better on the social media front.
Great, and another question on hosting virtual drinks and for our network, and is that a good format, or can we recommend a good format to engage people?
I think, well, we just used Zoom as for ours. You can sign up to Zoom for free. You don't have to pay anything, and then you can have up to 40 minutes of collaboration time on a sort of video conference. And we found that great, actually. And I think people were really wanting to share the challenges that they were facing. And we found some really interesting insights and some opportunities to collaborate with some of our network through in different ways that we'd not thought of before. So I mean, you can just use it as a sort of do a WhatsApp video or something like that. But Zoom we found is really effective.
Sure. And actually this isn't a question that's come in, but it was a conversation I was having earlier with a client. The question about the sensitivity of the time and reading that, I think it's very much a case of observing and taking the attitude that we are in this together, and it's very much a case of focusing on your local network, as Charlotte referenced earlier, and tuning into that. So, oh, have we got one more question? No, I think that's it for questions for now.
Simon Clark's just made a good point on the chat, which hopefully everyone's seen, that actually Zoom are now allowing unlimited time, so there isn't the 40-minute limit anymore if you don't have a paid for subscription. So thank you for sharing that. That's great to know. Hadn't spotted that.
And thank you to Zoom for giving us the extra time. I know often it's needed, and very good of these different businesses to kind of give back in different ways. So I think we've come to a bit of a close, but thank you very much for joining us today and for taking part. We hope you've been inspired by today's session. It looks like you've all taken something from it, or at least you intend to implement some of the ideas. If you would like to spend some more time exploring any formal support for your business, we are hosting one-to-one sessions, Power Hour sessions, with a special offer for LAPADA members. So do take us up on that. That's an offer that will be valid until the end of August. So get in touch, and don't forget to join the conversation after the webinar with using the hashtag Cultural Comms Power Hour and the handles LAPADA.org and Cultural Comms. So we hope that you stay safe, stay positive, stay healthy through these challenging times. And we very much look forward to seeing you in person once we emerge from the lockdown. Goodbye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.